Hey everybody, I'm going to show you how to do an Italian or invisible cast on 16-inch circular needles. So the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and make your slip knot. Just a normal slip knot. Get that on your needles. Okay, now the first thing you're going to do is do a knitted cast on. So that is just going in as if you're going to knit. Take your working yarn, wrap the back needle, pull it through, pull it, then you twist it behind your left needle and slip that loop on your left needle. Okay, so now we have something that looks like this. So one thing that I'm always going to tell you to do is notice which way this working yarn is laying. So this is laying towards you. So we need to send it away from us. So we're gonna stick this right needle between these two loops like this. You're gonna make like a cross. See how that's in there? And it's going away from us. We're gonna take the working yarn and we're gonna wrap that back needle like that. And we're gonna pull that through these two loops. Then pull it a little bit towards you, twist it behind your left needle, and slip that loop onto your left needle. And you can pull it a little tight, not too tight. Okay, now you'll notice that our working yarn is tipped towards the back a little bit, like that. Okay, so that means we're going to now send it towards us. So I'm going to take my right needle and I'm going to stick it between these next two stitches towards me, pointed towards me. So like that. See that? I made another cross, but now this is on the front. You're going to take the working yarn. You're going to loop it around that needle, and you're going to pull that loop through backwards like that. Pull it a little bit. I'm going to twist it around to the front of my needle and slip it on my left needle. Okay, so now you can see that this yarn is, my working yarn is laying towards me, pointed towards me, which means I'm going to send it back. Okay, so repeat. Put your needle, your right needle, between those loops and send it away from you like that. Take your working yarn again, wrap it around that back needle and pull it through between those two loops. Okay, pull that yarn a little bit towards you. And I'm going to wrap it behind my left needle and slip that loop on to my left needle. You'll notice that the yarn is, my working yarn is laying backwards again, which means I'm going to send it towards me. that working yarn, wrap it around the front needle, pull that yarn. Whoops, I dropped it, so I'm going to do it again. I'm just going to put my needle like so, wrap that yarn around, push it back through. Now I'm going to twist this loop and slip it on to my left needle. And now you can see the yarn is laying towards me again, so I will send it back. And so we just keep repeating that until you get the number of stitches that you need. And it's starting to create this pattern that you can see where there's a stitch that's forward and a stitch that's back, a stitch that's forward, a stitch that's back. And you can kind of see how this stitch, when I say it's forward, it's kind of laying, sorry, to the front. And then you can see the two surrounding stitches are kind of depressed backwards a little bit behind this. So this is a knit stitch, and these are purl stitches. This is a knit stitch. Knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, which means I'm gonna make a knit. And do you know, if you remember, like when you're knitting, like normal knitting in stockinette stitch, the working yarn for purls will lay forward, and the working yarn, once you complete a knitted stitch, will lay backwards. So that's exactly what's going on here. So that's another way you can tell where you're at. So I'm gonna go ahead and complete my number of cast-ons that I need. So it's laying forward, so I'm gonna send it back. And I'm gonna speed up a little bit. Okay, so I'm all ready to go. I've got 100 stitches cast on. And now the first thing that you're gonna need to do is make sure that your work is laying flat and there's no twists in it. So I'm gonna add some twists so you can see what this looks like, what this process looks like. So go ahead and make sure all your loops are pointed outwards. So I'm gonna start on my left needle. Oops. And actually, oh, okay. So they untwisted themselves, but there we go. So now all of my loops are pointing outwards. I just want to make sure, yeah, it's just laying. Okay. And if I had a twist, now I'm going to add a big twist so I can show you. So it's really subtle, but as you're following your loops along, all of a sudden, my loops are now pointing inside the circle. That's bad. So just go ahead and continue on and just twist that. So all your loops are pointing outward. Okay. And now I'm ready to go ahead and join up in the round. Now, I'm gonna be really cautious and get my stitches into place here, making sure I don't put any twists in my work. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go ahead and put a little lobster claw on this stitch, the very first one here, because I wanna denote which one my last stitch is going to be in the round. Okay, so I'm just putting this little lobster claw here. And now when you're ready, and you also, I don't know if I mentioned, but you always need to make sure you've got an even number of stitches. This only works with an even number of stitches. So your first stitch is going to be a purl stitch whenever you're doing this in the round. So I'm going to go ahead and move my yarn over getting ready to purl. And I'm going to complete this purl stitch. Okay, and remember, it's always going to be a little loose, your first one. Don't worry about that. Now the next one's a knit. Okay, and the next one's a purl. So how you can tell what you're supposed to be doing, make sure you're always lined up this way. Purl stitches are going to be pointing towards the back. See, they're a little depressed behind this little ladder rung here. And a knit stitch is laying nice and neat on top of the work. So this next one is a knit. My next one here is a purl. See how that's behind everything. The next one's a knit that's laying on top, purl. So make sure you're following that. And if you're off for some reason, then either you've made a mistake somewhere, just go back and fix it. Go make sure you've got an even number of stitches, but you knowing that is also the way that you can set your work down if you need to and return to it later as you're doing this cast on, and you don't have to worry about like keeping track of where you were at. So knit, and again, whenever you're doing this circular cast on, this is going to be long. That's your first one. Don't worry. As you continue your work, it'll disappear. Purl, knit, purl, knit. Okay, so I'm almost back to the beginning of my round, and I just wanted to point out one last thing to you. So your last two stitches are gonna be a little hard to see, and that's kind of why I started off by lobster clawing my very last stitch. So these two stitches tend to be right on top of each other at the end. So, but by lobster clawing my last stitch there, I could see that this is actually a stitch. So just keep that in mind, because a lot of times people accidentally end up treating the last two stitches as one stitch, and they'll knit them or knit them together, and that's not right. So I'm on my last purl, and they are hard to get in here too. So just know that if it feels like it's kind of hard to get to it, that is correct. All right, and then here's my last stitch, which is a knit in the round. Okay, and now that I've done that one, I can go ahead and just put my normal stitch marker on, and I can take this guy off because it served its purpose. And now I'm back to the beginning, and I'll keep on following my 1x1 ribbing pattern, and you'll start to see this beautiful invisible ribbing emerge, and you can kind of start to see it already. That nice lovely edge right there. And as you continue going in your pattern, you'll just see this emerge even more. Just a nice invisible cast on.